What conspiracy theory do you believe to be true? What evidence led you to this conclusion? Peep, Sylvia Rice isn't a real person and ours is a lie. Every Trader Joe's has a small or otherwise difficult to navigate parking lot. This is done purposefully, in order to make the stores look busy. For real. Like, dude, check out your local Trader Joe's and try to go through the parking lot. You'll notice that it probably sucks really bad. That's cause they all do wake up sheeple. O.J. Simpson didn't do it. It was Jason Simpson. O.J. didn't do it. Nicole Brown was nearly decapitated, and Ron Goldman was stabbed 20 plus times and had numerous offensive wounds. The prosecution claimed the injuries were consistent with 10 knives being used and produced a stiletto knife good for stabbing, but not cutting, and a Swiss Army knife not really good for hurting anyone other than yourself. O.J. had only a small cut on his hand with no other evidence of having been in a fight. The only blood found in his home were a few drops of his own blood which were contaminated with a preservative used in blood draws. Jason did it means Jason was employed as a sous chef and had his own knife set and also owned a double-edged combat knife. Motive: Jason was cooking alone at his restaurant that night and had specifically invited Nicole to come see him cook. She stood him up and went to Mezzaluna where Ron Goldman worked. Jason was known to be bothered by Nicole seeing men other than his father. Opportunity: Jason's time card that night was handwritten for a time much later than when the restaurant shut down. His alibi changed multiple times, but the last time anyone can definitely account for him is around 9:30 that night. The kicker? The day after the murders, O.J. retained one of LA's top criminal defense attorneys for Jason and did not hire his own defense attorney until several days later. I have always believed this. O.J. covered for Jason. Since O.J. didn't do it, he wasn't worried about being convicted. Jason's reaction when the verdict was read was over the top. He completely broke down. Most anti-smoking/vaping ads, including those truth ads, are funded by tobacco companies. That part isn't conspiracy, it's just a fact. Sometime in the 80s the industry was sued, and part of the settlement included them funding anti-smoking ads. It may technically be opinion, but I don't think many are gonna disagree that most of those ads are also just plain annoying as fuck. I think that's on purpose, so you'll ignore them. Hell, I personally have almost wanted to smoke, just to spite the dumbass ads. Vaping is safer than honk. All conspiracy theories, even the ones that contradict each other, are true. Ted Cruz is the Zodiac Killer. Ted Cruz for humanpresident.com. I have never seen this before and now I love you. That Disney made a movie named Frozen, so that when people Google things like Frozen and Disney together, info about the movie comes up instead of stories about Walt Disney's frozen head. If Walt's head had been frozen, what reason would they have to hide it? I just think they don't like the story. Not sure I actually believe they froze the guy's head, but I think they don't really want their fans to hear the stories as much. Let it go. Lindsey Graham is gay. He's not too ugly, he's never been in a relationship with a woman in his congressional career, and he would have reason to in SC. I worked in government in Colombia and this is well held among SC officials. It's basically an open secret at this point. I interned in Congress a while back, and the Miss Lindsey comments were everywhere. A lot less known, he's a huge alcoholic, gets blitz nightly, and oftentimes gets angry and becomes belligerent. Though this isn't exactly uncommon amongst congressmen. The fact that Barack Obama wasn't assassinated because he was the first black president and Trump hasn't been assassinated means regular people don't kill presidents, but rather the government kills presidents. Makes sense. Why go to jail for killing some important guy when you can live 4 to 8 years and have him gone? Edit. The cost-benefit analysis says it just doesn't make sense to assassinate a president because you don't like him. You're assuming somebody crazy enough to kill a president is doing cost-benefit analysis beforehand. People kill other people because they hate them all the time, even if it doesn't make sense to do so. Not to mention the amount of security advances we've made in the years since JFK. Killing a president has to be more difficult now than it was in the past. I'm not saying the government wouldn't kill a president and blame it on a patsy. It's still just as plausible to think the government would kill a president as to think a lone gunman would. I'm just saying historically, those who assassinate, or try to assassinate, public figures are oftentimes mentally ill. At least in the US. If it happens in a foreign third world country, chances are it was CIA. I believe that bankers and Congress absolutely knew that the housing market was going to bust in the way it did. Why else would they change the bankruptcy laws to be harder to get out from under the foreclosures back in 2005? 3 whole years before the collapse. I worked in the industry. They totally knew. 3 years ago, I was given a recording of my arrest which had the dialogue altered to portray the officer's actions in a more positive light. I then spent a long time gathering evidence, analyzing clues, and reconstructing exactly what had happened. I then compiled my findings into a video and posted it on Reddit. People said the video was too long. I then lost hope and gave up the will to keep fighting. TL. Dr. Police are editing tapes and no one really cares enough to do anything about it. https://yauta.b/lkrcvm_edge_q and started the fire. Evan was using Calivan to balance the books in order to cover up his embezzling of company funds. Being fired for incompetence beats prison time. Why use real number when fake number do trick? He didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world was turning. I honestly think a lot of people from the 1% richest people in the world hold the human sex trafficking industry. The reason I think this is because no country is showing awareness to this issue like it should be. I think they hold so many positions of power and media outlets with the checkbook that they can get away with it without people putting up too much of a fuss. Edit. Want to clarify, I don't not mean the 1% as a whole. However, a group of these people, I believe, are financially supporting, managing, and benefiting from the human trafficking ring. Sony killed Michael Jackson. He owned the rights to the Beatles discography. After he died, Sony had remastered versions of every Beatles album available days after MJ's estate sold the rights to Sony. There's no way they could have remastered the albums and published the CDs in that short amount of time. They could have remastered them way earlier in preparation for MJ's eventual death. He was not a healthy man. If any company can put out millions of CDs in days, it's Sony. It's just like how news outlets will have obituaries for celebrities prepped and ready to go. Never know when someone will die, and you want to be first to the presses to maximize those profits. Human life is a commodity. Yeah, this is absolutely true. CNN published an article after Fidel Castro died saying something along the lines of Fidel outlived 6, change this to 7, if George Bush dies before Castro, previous US presidents. Clearly whoever had the job of publishing the article didn't do a proper job of proofreading it. Tragedy today, as former President Gerald Ford was eaten by wolves. He was delicious. I believe that modern/minimalistic art exists solely for money laundering. It's just a way for rich people to move money around. There's a reason why paintings of plain geometric shapes sell for millions of dollars, and it's not because the buyers are really into shapes. I think this is a half-truth. I think modern art doesn't exist to fill that role, but I do believe that the richer people take advantage of it, and many so-called artists are merely pretenders in a crickle of money laundering which is conveniently enough backed by academic art circles who might even be aware of it. Unfortunately, most contemporary artists don't get to partake in the third-party auction profits you see in all the top auction houses. They'll sell through their galleries for their price, pay 50% to the gallery, walk away with a fair amount, and see their work sold for 5,000% 2 to 3 years later, and see none of that money. The Price of Everything HBO documentary shows some of this in action. Source: brother is a successful contemporary artist that sells well and shows internationally. Vegas shooter. Like so many unanswered questions about his motives, how he was able to get so many guns into that room undetected, why police and security took time to respond, and how quickly all this stuff got dropped by the media. Just all kinda weird. Maybe I'm just uninformed. If someone has these answers, please help me. How he was able to get so many guns into that room undetected. Could easily carry them in undetected in suitcases over a few days. This had some friends get married in Vegas, and we carried in a shit ton of stuff to our rooms. Lots of it was just alcohol. Some big boxes, cases, and bags. Point is, we were never stopped or searched or anything. We just got to Vegas, checked in, parked our cars, and started hauling everything up to the 10th floor. This wasn't even over a few days. It was right when we got there, and some of the stuff we carried, it was big enough to fit all kinds of crap.